Okay, let's look at a few more examples. I want to do number 6 with you. So again, I have to isolate the absolute value first. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So x plus the absolute value is less than 6. Now that it's isolated, now I branch. This one I'm going to keep it. Everything's the same. Over here, I'm going to keep what's inside, and I'm going to switch. I switch my sign, and I switch my target number. And then, of course, I solve. Subtract 3, x is less than 3. Subtract 3, x is greater than -9. I look at my target numbers, 3 and -9. They're not ordered least to greatest, so I'm going to rearrange them. I'm going to put x. I'm not changing anything. I'm just putting x is greater than -9 here, and then I'm putting x is less than 3 here. When they're in this position, I can see that the arrows are going towards each other, so I know that's an and statement, right? Not how I write an and statement. I'm just setting it up for that graph. So I'm going to graph it first. I'm going to do open circle on 9, open circle at 3, and I know they go together. I'm going to write my and statement above because it's one line, one variable. My target number is -9. My target number is 3. X is less than 3, but x is greater than -9. So there is my inequality statement. Interval notation, this graph starts at -9. It goes to 3, both open circles, so parentheses around that. All right, let's look at number 8. Okay, look at my first step here. I've got to get rid of that fraction, so what am I doing? I am multiplying both sides by a -2. When I multiply both sides by a -2, there should be light bulbs going off in your head saying, uh-oh, I'm multiplying by a negative. I've got to switch the sign. So those cancel out, and then I have the absolute value of 4x minus 8. Switch my sign because I multiplied both sides by a negative. Now I have isolated, and now I can branch. I'm going to keep it. 4x minus 8 is greater than or equal to 12. And then I'm going to keep what's inside, switch. Keep it, switch. All right. And then, of course, I solve. I add 8 to both sides. 4x is greater than or equal to 20. Divide by 4. X is greater than or equal to 5. Over here, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. 4x is less than or equal to -4. Divide by 4. X is less than or equal to -1. I look at my target numbers, -1 and 5. They're not in least to greatest, so I'm going to rearrange. So I'm going to move this one. X is less than or equal to -1. X is greater than or equal to 5. I look at my arrows. They're going out. That tells me it's an or statement. So they're already rearranged. I tack on the word or, and I call it a day. Then I'm going to go graph it. So I circle in -1. X is less than -1, so it goes that way. I bubble in 5. X is greater than, so I go this way. And now for my interval notation, this starts at -infinity, so it has to have a parenthesis. It goes to -1. -1 is a part of the solution, so I block it. I must include the word or. It picks back up again at 5 and goes to infinity. 5, of course, has a block around it, and infinities always have that parenthesis. Okay? All right, last one we're going to do together, number 10. Okay, so number 10, of course, I am going to isolate, so I've got to get rid of the constant term first. Remember, this 1/2 is a coefficient of that absolute value, right? It's right before it. So I've got to get rid of my constant term first. So I'm going to subtract 11 on both sides. I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. Notice, I am not being lazy here. I am rewriting the whole thing. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 because I got to clear out my fraction. So multiply by 2. Notice I'm doing it up here because it's a numerator. And then I'm multiplying by 2. So these guys cancel out. I have 4x, my absolute value of 4x minus 4 is less than or equal to 8. Now that it's isolated, now I can branch it. So I'm going to keep this whole equation, inequality, excuse me. And over on this one, I keep what's inside, I switch it, and I switch it, right? And then, of course, I solve. 4 to both sides, 4x is less than or equal to 12. Divide by 4. X is less than or equal to 3. Over here, I add 4. 4x is greater than or equal to negative 4. Divide by 4. X is greater than or equal to negative 1. I look at my target numbers. They are not lined up least to greatest, so I'm going to rearrange. X is greater than or equal to negative 1, and x is less than or equal to 3. I look to see what happens, and these are going towards each other, so it's an and statement. So I don't write an and statement like that, but I'm going to graph it first. So I get negative 1, close circle on 3. They go towards each other. I know it's an and statement. I'm going to write my and statement right above it. One line, one variable. My target number is negative 1. My target number is 3. X is less than or equal to 3. And if I look at it this way, x is greater than or equal to negative 1. So, of course, those arrows go in the same direction. Interval notation, it starts at negative 1. It ends at 3. Both have a block around them. Okay? So, if you're struggling, you've got to come see me.